Like what kind of things can people use to hydrate during these runs that are more natural versus say like, I don't know, like a Morton drink mix or something like that?
Yeah. This is interesting because from what I have found, and I've worked with Scratch Labs since 2012 when they first started to various degrees or another. I was a chef for them for a long time and have gone to tons of different events with them and learned a lot about, number one, just performance nutrition as a whole, but also hydration and the science behind that. And have done their sweat testing and brought my clients in to do sweat testing there. And um, it's so different for every single person. And unlike carbohydrate intake and calorie intake and the different fuels that you use, hydration is there's not as much wiggle room with it oftentimes because each one of us is predisposed to lose a certain amount of sodium in our sweat. That's a genetic predisposition that we have, is like you're going to lose a certain concentration of sodium in a liter of sweat that I'm going to lose, right? It's different for each person. And that doesn't really change based on your diet or the amount of sodium that you're consuming or anything like that. It's always the same. The fluid loss, of course, changes based on the environment and the effort that you're putting in and the temperatures and all that kind of thing. So what I have found with hydration is that this is more of a can often be more of a like a what would you call it, a non-negotiable or a necessity for me. So for example, I was in Oaxaca, Mexico over Thanksgiving and I did a 5-day bike packing trip. I wasn't worried about the nutrition because I knew that we were going to go into a bunch of local tiendas and little stores and grab food and fuel. And I didn't really bring any specific sports nutrition products, but I brought all of my scratch hydration with me because I didn't want to mess with that. I didn't want that to be a thing that would leave me having a horrible time, basically, because I wasn't getting in the sodium that I needed, the electrolytes that I needed, and overall just the volume that I needed. So long answer to that is um, electrolytes should be consumed anytime you're sweating, especially for extended periods of time, multiple hours at a time, because you are losing electrolytes in your sweat. And then if you're just consuming water, you're just watering down the electrolytes that you're also losing. So that can set you up pretty poorly, especially for long events. With all the different products out there, when we go into a random gas station and we're trying to resupply on that kind of stuff, like one thing to know, like coconut water, for example. Coconut water has a ton of potassium and a little bit of sodium in it. That's the opposite ratio of the electrolytes that you need to replace in your sweat. That's the opposite ratio of the electrolytes that you lose in your sweat. So what you would have to do in that respect to make coconut water work is you would need to have a watered down coconut water with a lot more salt. The problem with the salt is that sodium chloride, which is table salt, is a lot more disruptive on our gut than sodium citrate, which is what most sports nutrition electrolyte products use. They use sodium citrate because it's easier in our gut. So when people are getting into like that kind of stuff, like like a Gatorade or a Powerade that you can find in a gas station is probably going to be like that can be good in a pinch, and I would probably have that as opposed to water if I was like in an all day effort or something like that. And I would probably water it down a little bit because the carbohydrate content concentration is quite high in something like that, but it's still going to get you some of the electrolytes. There's so many different products out there, but typically what you're looking for is like mostly sodium and a little bit of potassium and all the other electrolytes. And then just be mindful of like, I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but drinking those like high carb options like the Gatorades and the Powerades, like I grew up drinking those when I was like playing baseball as a kid, right? And it kind of coats the inside of your mouth. It's kind of like makes you want to like hawk a loogie and like spit it out because it's weird, right? That's because the concentration of carbohydrate is so high in that. It doesn't need to be that high, and typically that's what also can cause some gut rot. So that's why sometimes you can water that down, but you also have to recognize that by watering that down, you're also watering down the electrolyte concentration of that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of
So,
sense.
yeah, no great answer for that question, but I hope that gives some context to help people kind of understand and be able to make a informed decision.
No, I think that's very helpful for people. And like recently, I've noticed that a lot of brands will, maybe not a lot, but a few brands I've seen, instead of saying the exact ratios, at least on the front of the packaging, will be like, it has 950 milligrams of electrolytes, and you flip it
Yeah.
around, and it's just like almost just like random. They just threw numbers out,
Yeah.
and it's like that's kind of silly because it's like I've done the sweat test as well. And it's like
Yep.
I need to have like a fair amount of sodium, and if like it's
Mm-hmm.
1,000 milligrams of electrolytes, it's like cool. If it's 900 of a potassium, like that's not helping me at all. Like
Yes,
I'm just gonna have major issues.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And to your question, Derek, about, like the element and all these like high sodium drinks and that kind of stuff, like a thousand milligrams of sodium is a lot. Some people need that, some people don't. The people that need that are the people that are the above average sodium loss people, right? They're losing, like the average person loses 800 to 1,000 milligrams of sodium per liter of sweat. I'm a little bit below that average. I know that. I'm like 760. Some people are 1,200, 1,300, 1,400. Some people are way higher than that. That's typically like above average. What were your results?
It
Do you
was
know?
around 1250.
1,250. Yeah,
Yeah.
right. So you would probably drink an element or drink something really salty with that 1,000 milligrams of sodium in it, and you would probably actually enjoy that a little bit more than I would enjoy that.